Hello and welcome to Vikings Territory Breakdown Podcast. I'm Joe Oberly, senior writer at VikingsTerritory.com and PurplePTSD.com, and that's Mark Craig. He's the NFL insider, Vikings writer, and Hall of Fame selector for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. Mark, some big news this week. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Kwesi, we hardly knew you 4 years in and several failed drafts and a contract extension, and he was shown the door. And many were puzzled by the timing, but we here at Vikings Territory Breakdown we're not. We've been talking about it since late November after the Vikings were beat by the Packers 23-6. And then you laid out Kwesi's draft record in the paper after backup quarterback Brosmer got beat in Seattle. So showing how there's so little depth. So there's no surprise here. We kind of saw this coming, but I'm just curious of your thoughts, Mark.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kwesi's seat was flaming. It wasn't on fire. It was in it was an inferno. But so I don't think anyone's really surprised that he's gone. It was the timing. But I think I did a story on the Wilf family. It's a fun story. We talked to their mom, a Holocaust survivor, and in the process of doing that, you learn that Mark Wilf is a very, very meticulous guy. And their structured, their process was to do this after the season, and they went through their due diligence and arrived at it at this time. I think that a lot of teams would have done it. You're out of the playoffs in mid-December. You speed that process up so you could maybe have a GM that you could hire when you're supposed to hire the GM. So that the timing is, I would relate it to that. There's no, Mark Wilf didn't say that, but that's just my feeling, is that they are very meticulous people, and they check a box and they move on, and they're not rushed by the outside world. So not a surprise. The timing is a surprise. I do feel like rather than have Kwesi go through another draft, it's good to have Rob in charge and working with people. It was just a bad fit. Being an old guy, like a football guy, I never liked the hire. I never liked the analytics hire. I never liked the fact that he hadn't been a GM. I didn't find him coming in and basically acting like, geez, I didn't realize this, or I look at things like this. I didn't find it refreshing. I found it alarming, frankly. I think that he's a guy that you want in your organization. You don't want him at the top of the food chain, though. It's just so it's good. He won't. He said we hardly knew him, but he won't be forgotten. There's a couple infamous things that will live on for quite a while.
Speaking to the point you just made about analytics versus, Jeremy Fowler, one of our former colleagues, he's with ESPN now, said his sources told him that as an analytics guy, rather than a scouting guy, he was never truly accepted from day one. Does that track with you at all?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think that tracks with Brian Flores, which I think Kevin Seifert, he had a source tell him that that played into the role of one of the roles, one of the keys. It was Flores not re-signing. I mean, you try to picture Brian Flores in a room with Kwesi. If I don't know how, if there's any pushback from Kwesi to Brian Flores on a player, it's like where's it coming from?